Hey, welcome to another episode of the WP Crowd. Today we are talking about something obscure again, but not coffee this time. So before we get into it, I'm going to go ahead and do introductions, starting with Megan.
Sweet. Hi, I'm Megan Haynes, lover of rainbows and WordPress and many other things. Today we are talking about pens, and I have a lot to chime in on this subject because I love pens and paper. Bit more about me. No, not enough. Just go to mhaynes, MHAN.es, and read more about me there.
Awesome. Hi, Megan and Josh.
Hi, I'm Josh Pollock. I am the lead developer for Caldera Forms. It's a drag and drop responsive form builder. You can find me on the internet at Josh412. You want Twitter internets or calderaforms.com. Hi, Ryan.
All right. So today we're talking about pens, paper, whiteboards, and the tools that we use that aren't digital for kind of revolving around our digital lives. Let's just dive right into it. I'm curious, Megan, why don't you start off with this? What do you use when you're not taking notes, or what do you use pen and paper for, et cetera, et cetera?
So I am a huge proponent of pen and paper for digital design. And it seems super counterintuitive to say, but sometimes a lot of these digital tools for, idea, brain mapping and stuff, they add a lot of overhead to the creative process. So ironically enough, I actually recommend doing a good amount of work, whether you're doing design or figuring out logic or sketching or whatnot, just straight out on paper instead of even going into any of these digital tools. Some of, talking about, I don't know what pen you guys have found. This magical pen just makes me so curious. I've got a bunch of them from different conferences as well. Some have those little nice tips that let you do stuff on your phone as well to distract you from using the pen for writing purposes. But lots of other conferences nowadays give out these little tiny books too. And these are super handy, like grab a few extra because they're awesome for jotting down things too.
So do you have a favorite pen, like a pen that you just automatically go to?
So yes, but it's mostly because it comes back from my art days. Piece isn't around, but it's the V5 Pilot pen. And also I'm left-handed, so that's an issue too. No matter what I write with, I'm a lefty that smudges as I write, so I'm not like one of those curve around ones. So kind of for me, pens are more particular, but the V5 pen is a nice sort of flowing pen. It's not a ball type, it's kind of flow ink on the end, so it flows really nice.
Does it dry instantly, or do you actually still get a lot of smudging as you're writing?
It's a fast dry. It's a very fast dry ink. Lots of the ball pens just kind of smudge city. So
you also brought up your little notebook there. What kind of notes do you like? So personal preference, I don't like those small notebooks. Here's an example of a notebook I got from Media Temple at LoopConf. That this is like the smallest I'll go as far as notebooks go. I actually like having like my college, full size 8.5 by 11 notebooks, like spiral bound. I love jotting notes on those and taking notes on those, if anything. But if I have to go smaller, I go this size. Moleskines are my favorite. But why you prefer, or what do you take notes on for the smaller things? Don't you find it too cramped, not enough real estate on the page?
It is smaller, but that kind of makes you have to focus your notes a little more. I sort of this might sound a little weird, but if I'll buy a nice Moleskine book to take notes in, I'll never take notes in it. It's too nice. The biggest.
Oh yeah. If anybody gives me a Moleskine, I'll give it to my wife because she'll appreciate it, whereas I'll be afraid to write in it.
Yeah, and I actually I'll hesitate to take down a note because I'll say, well, I don't know if it's in the right book or anything. I kind of came across this new technique that I'm using now where I treat notebooks like temporary items and rip paper out of them to process them. So I do not keep notebooks of silly little notes around anymore. I had them for years. And then I'm like, what value do I have of this? I don't know what the status is of anything. So I will keep this on me. It's a nice small size. They literally give them out at conferences, so I have tons of them. I'll take one that has a different paper type. This paper type is dotted, so there's actually no lines. Very nice for doing layout sketches without the things getting in the way. And then keep this on me all day. Jot down notes. If I need to make a bigger one, well, I have like, I've got 2 pieces of paper stacked on top. It's not as big as your notebook, Roy, but it's good enough. I don't grab a piece of paper if I need to and put it in the pile processor.
Can I ask some follow-up questions here?
Yeah.
So are you just using, Megan, your notebook for like sketching and stuff, or are you using it for like to-do lists or code or like diagramming stuff?
So I'll generally create a to-do list on a physical piece of paper independent of my notebook, just so I can visit, like if I'm going to move around a lot during the day, I like to have that independent just so I can always be like accountable and I don't have to be like, well, I have to bring it in this book or do all that. And I regularly check things off the to-do list because it's a motivation tool. A really key one actually with paper is having that type of closed loop feedback to continue on with it, because there's no gamification really otherwise.
Yeah, I'm looking through my notebook and it's mainly like to do, but like lots of like code to dos. Like, does everything need like have this part? Man, Megan hated what I said so hard she ran away.
So I'm just grabbing actually one of my notebooks to take a look. This is actually a really nice one. It looks really fancy. It's a larger size, so it's got twice as big as that. That's Roy's size. It actually came from IKEA, and it's like $3 or something. Really thin paper. But it like I said, if the notebook's too good, I won't use it. And that's just something that like is a me quirk, and I guess, it's Josh quirk too. So there are people who won't use notebooks unless they're nice. So get a nice notebook. Do with what you need to.
Right. I almost was afraid to, like, I got this one, which I've been using recently, which you can see is beat to shit because I've been using it. But it's like the WordPress Community Summit one. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, that's a nice souvenir. And I didn't want to use it. And I was like, it's a fucking notebook. Use it.
See, yeah, with that one, if I like the customization, because yeah, I've got a ton of them. I have literally like a stack of them with all different branding from companies. I'll just take off the back, like once I'm done with it, because I'll rip out the pages. Once I'm done with it, I'll just keep the shell of it on the wall. I actually have one from Community Summit with a bunch of stickers on it.
One of my favorite notebooks, and I can't find it. I think it might be on my desk at work, is actually a moleskin I got from GitHub when I was visiting their offices. Because it's a black, so it's basically the same size as this notebook right here. It's also moleskin, but it has the black casing, like it's black on black. And the GitHub logo is actually the normal Octocat logo, but it's really, really like muted, right? So you can't really see it. It's kind of more embossed, or it's the opposite of embossed. Embossed is out, so it's in.
Okay, so here's the type of notebook I forgot I had until you started talking about notebooks that are in the drawer. I have a white book, WIPE, which is a whiteboard notebook. And that's pretty cool. I don't know why I stopped using these. They come with special pens, which are really neat. Like, you can't use like a normal dry erase pen. You have to use their fancy dry erase pen. But they're like really nice pens. And so it's a whiteboard notebook. And what's weird about it is that if you let it sit for too long, it becomes permanent, which is kind of not a bad thing. But if you like, it's kind of cool because you could just like erase your notes as you go and like modify them quickly over the course of the day. I should start using this again.
So before we get into whiteboards, because I feel like that's a whole nother conversation.
Well, this was a good segue, right?
It was a good segue. I wish you just waited like 2 more seconds. Because I wanted to talk about Megan's point of ripping out pages, like when you kind of get to the point where your notebook, you've either stalled out, or like for me, I have so many notebooks laying around that like notes aren't really consistent across each one. It's more like, hey, I put a note in the notebook that's in front of me, and I make sure that one notebook's in front of me at all times. But as I go from my office here to my office at work, there's different notebooks. So I've actually come across a new method that I've been liking, where I'll actually take, like, let's say I don't need like this page, I'll fold it in half, right? And that way I know that page is no longer really needed. and I still have the notes if I need to go back to them. But I can quickly, like, essentially a big chunk of the pages, like my notebook at work is a Disney one that they gave me when I first started with orientation. It's a really nice hardbound notebook. Like I've never had a hardbound notebook before, and I almost didn't want to use it also, but I was like, it's a notebook. I'm just going to use it to jot down notes during meetings and stuff, that are logging my laptop around. And as I've been working there for, been at Interactive for a year or so, as projects close, I'll fold those pages in half. And so every time I open it, I open up, there's some folded pages, but the first like full page is the first page of whatever it is I'm currently working on or some project I'm currently on. Another thing I do, I jot down everything in notebooks. So like I was looking at my notebook actually yesterday while I was in the office. And another thing I do a lot is I will write on the back, like, like you're kind of going this way through your notebook. And then like, I forgot what it was. Oh, it was Montreal last year. I was like budgeting how much it would cost me to fly and stay in Montreal if I want to go to WordCamp. So I started at the back of the notebook, and this notebook actually has notes on it. And it's actually my like dinners for the week. Like Sunday, I'm going to have chicken parm. On Monday, I'm going to have stir fry. So it's just the back of the notebook. So eventually, like, my useless notes that I started in the back meet up with, like, more important notes, which I start in the front, and they meet in the middle. And that's how I know the notebook's no longer useful.
So a couple of follow-up questions there. One, that's kind of beautiful, like the useless notes and the useful notes come together. Two, I think that there's something really valuable about writing shit down. Like, I just found this note that says eloquent models have observers. And, like, I remember now writing that note, and then I remember like 2 days later, I was like, "Oh shit, this is where you use an observer in with eloquent in Laravel." But it wasn't because I saw this; it was just in my head that next time I came to that like situation, like I didn't read it again until now. So I think there's like a real value to writing things down. Megan, question for you: like you're way more like visual, artistically talented than the two of us combined. Do you think that that's part of why you're into the whole like taking notes on paper thing? Because it's like you enjoy like I follow you on Facebook and Instagram. I know you enjoy like painting and stuff. Like, do you enjoy that, like the activity of taking notes?
Like, yes, definitely. There's something like, not only does my brain encode information better when I physically write it down. I've been in meetings where people like virtual meetings like this, taking notes. And that's sort of how I'm synthesizing the information, is with that writing down. When I'm in person with somebody, like doing a consult or something, having a flow chart really helps to like creating that flow chart, circling something, putting an arrow, doing something else, making your list, sort of is the essence of taking their ideas and making them into a concrete to-do form or a to-do list. So perhaps it is. Maybe it's a left brain, right brain kind of thing.
Question for both of you. I find myself also using my notebook a lot for, because I'm I don't know how to describe it. Like I always need to be like moving and doing stuff. Like my brain always needs to be active. So a lot of my pages have like just like doodles and sketches for me, like thinking about, like I have like this doodle where it's my name, and I write this a lot. It's like my tagging block lettered name, but I have like add to cart, check ID for discount, and this is like from some project I was working on.
Right, and so, but that's an ADD mitigation technique.
Yeah,
right?
but do you guys? I'm not going to ask if you have ADD, but do you use?
Well, yes. When I was in college, I doodled in like the margins of my notebook in order to pay attention in classes, and people made fun of me for it, and they were fucking assholes for it. But now that I like am a grown-up business person, I just keep toys on my desk to fidget with, so I don't have to doodle. Right? Like, did you get that Rubik's Cube at LoopConf?
Yeah, I got 2 of them.
Oh man, that's my new favorite fidget tool. But yeah, like that's like a key step when in an academic situation where you're not allowed to play with toys for whatever silly reason. That you just use doodling to compensate for ADD.
Like the doodling, it's not that necessarily like I doodle to help me focus. It's also, it keeps me in the mindset. Like if I had a toy on my desk and that was what's like distracting me, I wouldn't take the notes. Like the fact that it's in my notebook, my brain is like, okay, notebook, like take notes.
Well, I don't use toys that I can like sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, like, I don't use toys I can properly play with. Like, I will never once in my life solve a Rubik's Cube.
Yeah, it's not like you're sitting there like, oh, Batman, like that. Like, no. But there is actual science that goes behind doodling while listening to information and how that physicality can actually, some type of neuron type thing. But while you're doodling, while listening, even if you're not, doodling about the notes, you're still synthesizing more information.
Doodling about the notes is a completely different thing. Like when I was in college, besides doodling my name like that, I would also doodle all the time. Like we were talking about balloons or whatever, like helium. I would doodle balloons in the back, in the side, in the margins and stuff. Like I would make my doodles relevant. Josh, we've not talked about notebooks, I think, enough for now. We've talked about pens quite in depth over the past few days. So can you just, I know you have a favorite pen. Can you share your favorite pen with the audience?
So I wanted to say that your favorite pen, I think, is a good pen and possibly like the top 3. But this is what I like, the UD Ball Vision Micro. These come in like really thick noise sizes. Fuck that noise. You got to get the micro or the fine. I think the micro is Apex. I've been using these since I was a little kid and I love them. This is my favorite, and I really do like the flow on that like G2 that you like, but I don't like the rubbery thing. I like the fact that this doesn't have a fancy grip.
So my favorite pen is the G2. I prefer the clicky action. I don't like, and that's part of my fidgeting, right? It's part of my ADD thing. I love sitting here clicking pens.
Yeah, I love that. I have pen. Like this is not a good pen, but it's got a click, so I like it on the desk.
I don't have like all my G2. All my black G2s are missing. They're gone. Like I go through. I was telling Josh kind of before. I go to Costco and I buy a pack of G2s in all colors like once a year. The black ones always go first. And I think I have like 2 sitting on my desk at work. But right now on my desk right here, I have 4 pens, right? 2 are actually Little America pens from the hotel we stayed at LubeConf. One's a WP Engine pen because it's pretty and it's turquoise. I don't know.
Look at this WP Engine pen I got. Look at this. It's silver, and it's got really great, like high quality fine ink. That
is a sick pen.
If anybody from WP Engine is listening to this, first off, go back to work. I'll tell you. If it's second off, give me like 10 of these, please.
Yeah, this pen actually, I think I've written with it a couple times. The writing action isn't like something to write home about, but the click action on this thing is like amazing. I don't know how they got such good click action out of this free pen, but it's amazing. The last pen on my desk, I actually don't use that often, but it's actually a Porsche pen by Porsche Design. I got it for free. And I only keep it on my desk because it's so unique. Because like I do like click action, right? Like all these pens are click action for the most part. This one has a click action where the thumb is. So like as you're writing, you can, which is kind of cool. And then the top part's actually a highlighter, although I don't highlight anything ever. So it's it's basically brand new.
I got a highlighter here. I haven't used it in a while.
Yeah, but this one has a highlighter built in. I've never used it. Yeah. And I'm not sure if the highlighter is the reason they have the click action on the thumb, but it's not even a great pen. I just have it on my desk for some reason. And then this is the last one, which is Josh and I's favorite new pen, which is the Media Temple, right? Media Temple?
Yeah, it's by Lamy.
Lamy Media Temple pen, which has
excellent click.
Excellent click action. Like the writing and everything else about this pen, I'm not gonna mention, but
it's fine.
If I had to love this pen for anything, it'd be click action.
Yeah, I agree. What do you got, Megan?
I'm actually realizing that I think most of my pens are like ran away, which kudos to them. I guess they rolled away, so good for them. So I can't show you my V5, V7s, and all those, whatever. But I'll show you the other ones that aren't necessarily as clicky. I've got 2 of them here that have those nubbies. Let me see if I can. So those are those touch capacitor nubbies or whatnot that you can use on your smartphone screens and stuff.
Is one of them a Word Impress and or Give pen?
One of them is a ladies learning code pen, and by the way, like this is why you should up your pen buy for like sponsorship pens, because this is an awesome, like, compare this with a plastic thingy pen. This is like serious metal. And the other one is a hover pen, smaller but still better kind of material. No clickies. Oh no, this one is a clicky. Oh, it's both. You can have clicky and touch
Oh, that's Apex pen right there.
Apex pen. I haven't broken off. Usually, I'm kind of a fidgeter, so I'll like fidget with these little things, and eventually, like most of my pens have no little thing on the edge because it's broken off.
That's the problem I have with the stylus backs. Like every time I get Word Impress or Give, I'm not sure what they actually brand the pen as, but their pens have the stylus, and every single time I get one, they're just the stylus is destroyed. And like,
oh yeah, that little rubber thing.
Yeah, it's gone in like a week.
Wow. Some other pens I have in my collection all have random little funny pens from like my friends or Japan or other things. They're not necessarily functional, but they're I guess they're desk tchotchkes. This one used to light up, I think, when you pressed it, but batteries are dead. And then one of the things I kind of always have with me is a Sharpie. Amazingly enough, because like you were showing earlier, like one of your things had doodle up top, right? Like you can add a lot of this is your B tag in real life, straight up. So you can add a lot of focus to your notes by taking a really thicker pen and covering and doing some dots or adding some arrows and recapping. This is a standard, the giant thick tip, so a little less functionality. Sharpie has a clickable Sharpie pen. And it's a felt-based kind of pen.
Oh,
it's
shit.
Amazing.
That's a pen.
It's amazing.
I don't have it with me. I don't know where it went. Another thing I lost. But I used to always carry around a Sharpie, the extra fine, like precision tip one. Love those things.
Yep.
Like,
Can we talk about pen width for a second here?
Yeah, talk about pen width.
No, go on. But I'm just saying, can we finish your thought?
Yeah, no, like I like the precision. I forgot what there's another like Pilot pen. I think it's kind of like Josh's favorite pen. It's super old school. I know not yours, but there's like another model that they carry, which is the super extra fine, like super.
Is that the one with the blue, like the navy blue container? Because there's a number of, like, we're getting into art pens on this side of things, but it's completely valid when you start getting into like the Sakura brand pens that are just so fine.
This one's, I think it's just called Precision or something, or Precise or something like that. I love extra fine pens like that, especially with the Sharpie, because again, the Sharpie, as I'm doodling, especially doodling and or actually like doing layout stuff, I can make a mistake, right? And then I'll use the Sharpie to actually write down or trace out what I actually meant, or just add emphasis, right? Like real life strong tag, as you said. I would totally do that. I just can't find it anywhere. It's really annoying because I really like that one.
What was I going to say?
Was it about pen width?
Pen widths.
Oh, pen width. So I'm just looking. I really, really like fine tip pens. Like I don't like thick pens. I don't know why. Right, and I'm not talking about like bullshit like ball tip pens. Like a good like inky pen. I always think that it should be fine. I don't like the thicker ones. I don't know why.
Well, I mean, a thinner pen just takes a long time to do a thicker line. At the end of the day.
I just like the precision you get out of it. It also like I have a really big thing with writing, like the actual like feel you get when you're actually writing on the paper. Like if it feels too rough, I won't like it. But if it feels too smooth, I also won't like it. It has to be that right texture feedback, or else I'm just like, no, it's not a good pen.
I also like the look of it. Like I'm looking at a page in my notebook where most of it's written in like a bullshit pen, but like a little bit of it's written in like the Apex pen, and like I just like looking at that pen.
I feel like if you have a really nice pen that you enjoy writing with, you also tend to write clearer and or better. especially because we're devs. Well, I find it with mine because most of my notes are dev related, so they're like looking at models and talking about high level how to code something. When I'm writing with a really good pen, I find most of my time is spent making sure those notes are a little bit more clearer. But when I'm using like a whatever pen, like a Bic, then I don't really care. Like I'll jot them down. I don't really care what it looks like. Pencils. Do you guys use pencils for anything?
Yeah,
Or are you guys
pencils
all
are
pens
awesome.
all the time?
Oh, absolutely. Pencils have a very good use when taking notes. Like more so nowadays, I'm trying to get away from that. I'm trying to just jump into pen, and if I need to cross something out, cross it out. Don't bother with pencil. But when I'm doing UX sketches and I'm talking with the client and we're working things out, there's no like. And I'm not really going to do these too often, but it's good to communicate with them and show them what their site's going to be like or whatnot. That's a perfect time where I'm going to use pencil because we're still figuring it out. The client doesn't know what they want yet. So, and with pencil, I'm going to use, I forgot to show this earlier, UX Sketchbook from Mandrill. Has anyone seen this before? I got this in some, it's just a standard. This is one of those things that you can do with paper that you can't do with, you can do this with technology, but you're going to take a lot of the magic out, is straight up start drawing like screens. It's nothing fancy. It's just like templates, but it adds to the visual process. And then again, it's not magic, but it's a part of, I guess, doing the job in the show, is then coming back with ink and then going over it with the client and being like, all right, so this is what we're going to do. And we're going to do this here and review by inking things. Like that works for me.
So Josh, you have an awesome notebook that's kind of like a whiteboard notebook, right?
Okay, you just caught me Googling, but in my defense, I was Googling what she just showed.
All right. So earlier, Josh brought up whiteboards in his whiteboard notebook. So I'm going to transition back into whiteboards for a second because I'm a huge fan of whiteboards. I still haven't put any whiteboards up in my new house, even though I've been living here for close to 6 months. But I love whiteboards, and I feel like they're hit or miss though. Like if you're not updating your whiteboard regularly, there's no point to them. Like you might as well just use a notebook.
Yeah.
But if you are going to spend the time on a weekly, daily basis updating a whiteboard, they can be super fantastic for just having your notes up. So at my old place, above where I have my screen mounted to the wall, I had a little tiny like bulletin board / whiteboard, and I jot down my weekly like goals for the week. Like what did I want to accomplish that week as far as coding or learning, whatever it might be. And that way, every time I sat down or every time I even looked up from the computer or at the monitor that was mounted to the wall, I would see my goals. And I try to make it a weekly habit of erasing it and starting over from scratch.
Okay, so here's the thing that happened to me a while ago that apparently was like duh to everybody else. Is exactly what you're talking about, was like the priorities board. Like I was like constantly pissed off with like, oh, I got to do this, I don't know what to do. And so Christy, who's my business partner, was like, no, you need a priorities board. And so like that exists on, I actually have it in multiple columns, more like the top portion on my whiteboard over here, which you can't see. And then we actually have an Asana board, right, digital, but distributed team, where everybody has their big priorities, everybody on the team. So that's a really useful thing. And then I have like a more fine-grained version of the top priorities listed on my whiteboard. But that's all I use the whiteboard for. I do all like my diagramming and my daily to-dos in paper. But what you were talking about earlier is I have, Scott from Pods got me into these, the White Book. It's a notebook where all the pages are, it's kind of hard to tell, but they're whiteboard. It's a little bit of a different type of whiteboard. You have to use which is great because you get introduced to these really cool pens. They're like whiteboard pens with a really fine tip. Because like normal whiteboard markers don't work together. It was kind of interesting about it is that if you leave it for more than a week, it becomes permanent. Like you can sort of get it off with rubbing alcohol, but whatever. But like there's a lot of pages in here. So it's kind of a hybrid between a whiteboard and a notebook, both in terms of permanence and the fact that it's a notebook that's a whiteboard. And I totally forgot that I had like 2 or 3 of these until we started talking about like what was over there in our drawers. And so, yeah, this is cool. I should start using this again.
So that's an awesome idea. It kind of reminds me of like, it might be a good middle ground, right? Again, between notebooks and whiteboard. And then I don't know why I want one, but I really want one of those whiteboards where it's like you want to save it. It like connects to your computer and it's like, boom, I just saved my whiteboard without actually like doing the whiteboard on your computer, like having a whiteboard app, but having like a physical whiteboard that's like, you know, a good sized whiteboard, being able to save components of it or just the whole board onto like your computer to edit later.
Oh yeah, I want one of those like so bad. One of those like hybrid digital.
Yeah, right. But like at the same time, like I feel like I don't know if there's a real use case for it because it's just like
you don't have a business partner in another city that you. Like,
well, I mean, like
screen shares where we're like we have like multiple cameras set up in front of whiteboards.
Well, but I mean more like right now, if I'm sending, so if something needs to go from a whiteboard and become more permanent, it goes either into a Jira task or it goes into something more digital that's an email, a document, something like that, or it goes into a notebook, right? Before I erase it off the whiteboard, it goes into a notebook where notebook is kind of the intermediary between whiteboard and the digital realm. I also find whiteboards really good for just like learning things. Like I went to Home Depot with a buddy of mine when I was living with him, and we bought like, you could buy for really, really cheap. You can buy like, they're like it's like meant for putting walls up and like drywall basically, but it's like whiteboard material. And you buy it for like way, way cheaper than you will an actual whiteboard with like a tray and stuff. Not magnetic or anything.
But is it a good whiteboard?
Yeah, totally legit. It's like a constructor's material. Like it's meant for contractors, but it's still a whiteboard. It's a shiny white surface that you can use whiteboard markers on.
Right, but I'm just saying, like, I have like a standard type of whiteboard over there, right? That's like the normal whiteboard material. But the co-working space I sometimes go to has some surfaces that are like the glass with white behind it. So you're actually writing on glass, but then the white's just so it's visible. Those, and then they also have, so those are incredible. And then they also have the whiteboard walls, right, where it's the special paint. And that's neat, but like it's not a great experience.
No.
Whereas the glass is like 10 steps above like your standard whiteboard.
Yeah, I worked for an agency and when we were there, our new offices, we got a bucket of the whiteboard paint and painted one wall in every conference room. Even though there were already whiteboards on the other wall, we painted the other wall with the whiteboard paint, so you could just write on the wall. But the experience is totally not there. It's not smooth enough. You get a textured feeling, and it's just not great. No, from Home Depot, you buy these things, and literally it was the size of like a wall. Like your whole wall becomes whiteboard without you spending money on a huge whiteboard.
If we're to create a Sivan scale of whiteboards, where like one is like the whiteboard paint for your wall, 5 is your standard classroom whiteboard, and 10 is those fancy glass ones, where are you going to put these walls?
Oh, I'd say it's definitely like a 5 or 6. Like they're definitely a great experience without. It was definitely like a typical whiteboard experience, but you just don't get like a nice frame and you don't get magnetization.
Magnetization is key.
Yeah. So,
hold on.
So moral of my story, Josh, before I keep on getting interrupted, is that we spent like a day with that whiteboard, and he taught me Angular 1, like because he was just writing everything and jotting everything down on the whiteboard, and I would love to have that kind of setup again. I love whiteboarding. We use it at work now for like a quick way to know what the current build version is, right? Like everyone knows, all right, we're all building towards this version number, and that sits in the middle of our bullpen. Also great for jotting down and kind of taking notes on ideas, but I don't have a whiteboard here, and I really need to get one.
Okay, Megan, are you totally remote right now?
Yes, I am 110% remote.
Okay, so I'm under 10% remote, and Roy's like hybrid remote in office. And I think that like our sample size is not statistically significant, but I suspect that it is correct in terms of whiteboards are more useful the less remote you are, or
Yes.
less distributed you are.
That's exactly it. Like a whiteboard is the original dashboard. So when I'm by myself, I would have to like manually update that whiteboard every day, and it doesn't suit the best needs that I need to communicate with my team on a remote. It just straight up doesn't.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a totally fair point.
I feel like I use the notebook all the time, and then I use Asana because other people on my team can see it. Whereas Roy's like, yeah, at work we have whiteboards all the time. And I'm like, yeah, you're missing the in between there, or I'm missing the in between.
Yeah, no, it's a fair point. Whiteboards are definitely more useful when you are in a meeting and you want to jot down notes that are collaborative or take down notes that are collaborative. I don't know. I really have a fascination with whiteboards. Like I wish I used whiteboards more often, and I think because I like whiteboards so much, that's why I use notebooks all the time, and I'll jot down anything because of it. But those are like personal things.
Right, but I don't think the whiteboards are great for like the person working by yourself.
Not unless you're doing solo projects.
It can be. Yeah, it can be. I mean, I think there's use cases where it's useful to have kind of like you don't want to jot this in a notebook because let's say a notebook you're constantly taking notes in, right? On a whiteboard, I put something that I want to keep up for like a week, and I don't want to have to flip the page to it or back to it every single time.
Maybe. Megan, what were you saying about the difference between solo projects and long-term?
Like if you're doing a personal goal or something and you want to have like a personal dashboard, then using a whiteboard is pretty good. You can set up your milestones and sort of keep updating yourself. I've used a whiteboard like you were mentioning, Roy, to sort of brain dump and get a lot of information out and communicate it to somebody really fast. That works as well too. But yeah, it just doesn't really work as well for solo people in my experience, like remote.
I mean, I like the concept of having your priorities on it. That way, again, you can always see them as you walk into your office or as you look up at your whiteboard. Things that are, again, you would jot in a notebook, except your notebook is more like temporary. Like, I know it's there, but you're going to flip to the next page, and then you're never going to flip back to that page with the priorities on it. Especially if it gets, in the middle of your notebook somewhere. So I feel like whiteboards are better for that purpose. Part of me just likes whiteboards because I feel like Beautiful Mind-esque when I'm using a whiteboard. Like, I feel like extra smart when I'm writing notes down on a whiteboard versus a notepad. It's just like, look at me. I'm going to solve some complex coding equation on this whiteboard right now.
That's fair. That's valid. One technique I use also is like kind of whiteboard markers or window writers and glass. So you grab a picture frame of whatever size you need. You can print out like a little template, put it underneath the glass, whiteboard on top for the week, light it off, and there you go.
It's not a bad idea. I should do something like that. Is Josh going to show us something now?
Oh, yeah. I have the cool box. Okay, so two things about this. One, you know that you're a nerd when your parents go on a trip and they get you an abacus box?
Amazing.
Yeah, my parents.
Pretty amazing, yes.
I forget where they were, but they sent me an abacus box, which is pretty legit, right? Like my parents hadn't got me an abacus since I was like 2, but whatever. Like, it's great. Like they probably saw me playing with that same abacus they gave to like their, my brother's kids. But these Crayola dry erase markers, I got these in a trade with Ninja Forms. And I worked at Miami last year. They are incredible. There's a relatively fine tip. They're so much better than the like standard ones. Like, what's the like industry standard that you had in like high school?
The Expos?
Yeah, those ones fucking suck. These are amazing. They have a really fine tip. They have sort of like a contour grip, and I don't normally like grips, but they have a good grip. They're Crayola Wishy Max, and they're incredible. I love them. Thank you, Ninja Forms, Kyle.
Very cool. All right, so I think we're in a consensus that writing things down is good.
Just to cut out the whole video.
Just end it there. Don't stop learning how to write, guys. Use
Well,
those fingers.
I think it's just interesting that like we could be passionate about writing utensils and writing tools, not just like what we write with, but what we write on, even though we're three digital people. Like our day jobs, what we make our money on are computers, right? So like the fact that I will bust out a piece of paper, people are like, why don't you just use your computer? Aren't you a computer geek? And I'm like, I am. I just like writing things down sometimes. It's just easier. And if I need to type it out afterwards, I'll type it. But it's just easier.
Paper for anything until I started doing web development. Like I was fucking so anti-paper.
I mean, like writing notes through college and writing notes in classes and stuff. But like I never went about my daily life with a notebook at hand. But now if I don't have a notebook on me, like I think I have one sitting in my backpack that's like my dedicated notebook backpack.
Nice.
My dedicated backpack notebook, actually. That just, it's always with me. It's like the on-the-go notebook. And if I need to take those ideas and transfer them to another notebook and or to the computer, I will. But that's why I always have a notebook on me.
Yeah, and you should. At the end of the day, I have yet to find, and this has been true for the past however many years in computing, there is not a program that can keep up as fast as our brains and hands can in generating ideas and writing them down and then getting our thoughts out.
Yep. I'd like to wrap up with one more thing. Tom McFarlane has a really good article about writing code or writing down, like using notebooks to write code. I'm going to put a link somewhere below around to it. I'll find it and send it to you, whatever. But it's a really good article about writing and using kind of like taking yourself out of the digital realm to start with a project and then get your way into, and then use that as kind of like the starting point.
Can I wrap up with two points?
Yes, you can.
One, just for no reason, I'm going to mention that this is a great WP Engine pen. Just for no reason. That I would love to have.
I will make sure to find that. I'm going to make sure to find one of those, even though it's not a clicky pen. I'm going to try to find one.
I've never found a clicky pen that like had a good click and a good writing experience. The G2 is good, but I don't like the grip. Anyway, so I wanted to round up just for no apparent reason to mention this WP Engine pen again, how much I love it, in which I had a second or third one, maybe a 10th. And also, Roy and I are teaching courses at calderalearn.com. You should check it out.
Nothing to do with writing, but yeah.
No, we're talking about making better code. Sometimes you might want to use a computer and some JavaScript or REST API.
Yeah, go to calderalearn.com where we won't teach you how to write anything, but you should write stuff. Besides that, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit subscribe and check us out. And if you're on our website, go to YouTube and hit subscribe because we want more subscribers. And that's it for now. So I will see you guys next week. Thank you for joining us.
Bye.